Hello and welcome to another session with Jimmy. Today I am substituting for the unsubstitutable Derek and Ryan. My name is Gus. I'm Ryan's dad. I'm here to substitute for him, so I'm not going to be as good as these guys. But I'm here today to talk about a subject that is very dear and close to Jimmy's heart. And I'm going to have Jimmy talk about it. But first, let me just give you a quick preview. Ooh. All right, Jimmy, take it.
That car that Gus just highlighted was a 1964 Watson Roadster. It won the Indianapolis 500 in 1964. This car is at the Henry Ford Museum, and Ryan told me that we get a chance to go look at it. And I got excited about it, and I'll tell you why I got excited, because I've been working on modeling a Watson Roadster for 6 years. These are Watson Roadsters. They excite me because they raced from 1956 until 1966. The last time it won Indy was 64, and I think it won Indy about 6 times. But I grew up watching these cigar-shaped cars. They were replaced by rear-engine cars. If you look at this picture, you can see the difference in the silhouette. This is 1962 when Dan Gurney raced a Lotus with the engine in the rear. You see these fat cars? Those are Watson Roadsters, and again, that's what I grew up with. By 1965 or 66, these cars dominated, and there were no more Watson Roadsters. But I had told you guys before that we would be stuck to the screen at 4 o'clock every Saturday watching ABC Wide World of Sports, because we were able to see in black and white reruns of some of these races, including Indy. We would not be able to see the cars up close until we went to the hobby shop. And when we get to the hobby shop, we would auger models like this. Look at the box art. Actually, that's suitable for framing, I think. But this car and cars like this, and that's when we would get a first-hand look in color at some of these cars. Because remember, we were watching it in black and white. This was from 1964. That's the Indy 500 winner. Now, this model is probably worth over $100, but it's incomplete. I actually paid, I think, $11 just for the box art many years ago. The point I'm trying to make is I always wanted to model those cars. And when I was a kid, I had 2 of these toys. My dad bought me my first slot car track, and it was a figure 8 with this rendition of a Watson Roadster by Eldon. Note that it's very toy-like. It has very rude and crude chassis work. But when I went to toy shows, I stumbled on them quite often, and I began to buy them thinking, you know what, I could probably gut that and make my own chassis and make a more detailed rendition of A.J. Watson's Roadster. I wrote to the IndyCar Museum, and they sent me this, which is actual drawings of the Indy Roadster. And from that, I converted the dimensions into 1/32 scale. And after doing that, I printed it. No, I went to Geico's and or Staples, and I expanded it until it became a 1/32 scale picture. I cut out the shape of it and made a template. That's a template right there, as you can see. And I made a gauge. See that gauge? And when I put it over the toy, it didn't come close. So I thought about it for a while, and I said to myself, okay, I'm going to go for it. So I started by cutting the back of the car out and gluing on a chunk of balsa. And I carved that balsa into the correct silhouette. Now that opening is for the fuel sending unit. And I made gauges. I made gauges that fit in the plan view, as you can see there, and in the top view, as you can see there. And that's how I got to carve it. Now it sounds crazy, but I wanted to build 10 cars because, as you know, I race AC2 car and I run 8 cars on my racetrack. And I had all the components that I had saved up from going to the toy shows. So I carved out the back, and then I realized, based on my gauge, that the car was too short in the nose. So I cut it, and I added a piece of plywood in there. Do you see that? Can you see that, Gus?
Let me move on to it. Yep, there you go.
That's what I added.
Okay.
And that gave me the correct length, and it finally fit the silhouette. Guys, that took me 3 years. Because I did it on cold winter nights, you know, when there might not have been something else to do. And I keep my stuff organized in boxes, and I pull it out and I start to work on it.
And it is Michigan, so cold are cold winter nights.
So, but my point is, I took the body, and this body is this body now. So it went from a toy to what I deem is a scale model. Now, the head is too big, and I bought the correct scale heads. I'm going to show you. I built a chassis for it. And the chassis are made out of popsicle sticks.
That's amazing.
These are the motors. It's got a bronze bushing on the inside. All these are pieces that I collected over the years, and I built a front suspension for it. And it fits into the car like that. Now, if you look closely, and I'll show you at the museum, Indy cars always turn left. So A.J. Watson designed this car with the engine to the left-hand side, which helps the weight transition, and he also offset the tires on one side so that it could make a left turn quicker.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, we'll see that in the car when we get there. So this chassis took me another year to design and build. I used a piece of aluminum to lower the center of gravity, and with Gorilla Glue I glued all the pieces to it. These are the pieces right here, and this is the gauge that I made.
Let me move there so I can show everyone. Hold on. Okay.
This is the gauge I made to set the whole thing up as I glued it together. These are the wheels I used. They're from old slot cars from back in the 60s. Mind you, I've been collecting my whole life. And I found a place in England who could make a tire that I could use. These wheels I collected 30 or 40 years ago, knowing that I was going to build slot cars before they began to produce nice slot cars today that I could, just look so beautiful. I needed a way to make realistic wheels. So these are 1/24th scale wheels there, and I've got a whole collection of them. They're inserts that fit into there. Now, since they're 1/24th, they didn't fit into a 1/32nd wheel, so I had to turn it down. Now that's the front wheel. This is the insert for the front wheel. And this is the insert for the rear wheel. And my goal was to make it look like that. The rear wheel looks like this. These are made of magnesium. And I turn them on my drill press and I sand them down till they fit. Crazy, but I have a passion for it. I want it to be as sweet as I can by the time the job is done. I've collected decals over the years. To make 10 cars, and in 1/32nd scale. And when I'm done, this is going to be the before and after. You see how much more to scale this is, guys? You can see it's got a scale driver and a scale interior. You can see the original toy had a lot to be accounted for. But that's what I'm working on. Now the question is, when A.J. Foyt won in 1964, his car had a unique front suspension, and I've got to make a model of the front suspension sticking out of the car. But every picture I see hides the suspension. So my goal is to go with Ryan, and we'll have a close look at what makes the front suspension go together on this car. They use torsion bars, but I suspect that the last few years, when those cars were trying to keep up with the rear engine cars, that they probably went to shock absorbers and maybe some springs. So I wanted to show this to you guys before we go there, because you'll see me especially interested in that suspension.
Thank you so much, Jimmy.
Sure.
This is outstanding. One of the series that we're trying to do is go to Henry Ford Museum, which has an incredible collection of trains, automobiles, and planes. And I'm not referring to a movie.
Yeah, that's what Ryan told me.
Yeah, but the interesting part is the racing pedigree there, which you know more about.
Yeah.
There's everything up to the GT, the Ford GT there. And so we would love to have you there multiple times to discuss some of these cars and how that relates to building these cars and getting them to scale and putting them on the racing stuff. I don't think there's a certain person in our age bracket that doesn't remember the day he got a racetrack. My earliest memory of my father is on the floor with me and two of his friends, which I considered are giants, all three of them, as I was a little child, playing with a track that they set up for me when I was a child. So it invokes so much things. But watching you do this, and I just want to show you guys the work that is involved here in trying to build these models and the love. What shows is a lot is the love.
Scan that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Gus, you probably played with a toy.
Yes, I did.
The car is a toy.
Yeah, it was always a toy.
And by today's standards, I'm so into scale. I wanted passionately to turn this toy, because I own two of them. Two of these bodies were mine back in 1962.
Yeah, so it has a lot of memory, doesn't it?
They've got a lot of memory.
Yeah.
And my youngest son actually butchered one of them with a sandpaper. He was like 6 years old. He just kept sanding and sanding. But all things told, I know in my heart that one of these bodies was mine when I was a kid.
Yeah,
and now
it's
hopefully
amazing.
it's going to be running around in scale, and we'll be able to show you guys.
I love the details. When I go on YouTube and I look at these incredible artists, that's what I call them, because I have no capability of sitting there and modeling a car like you're doing. It's passion, it's art, and it's beauty and nostalgia of the real item.
Yeah, you can scan this. I mean, these are my references from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
A lot of these are from magazines in the 60s. You can see them in black and white.
Yeah.
I was blessed. Imagine how excited I was when I got these drawings in the mail.
So nice of them. I mean,
we're just about ready to go to the museum, which I'm looking forward to. So next time you see me, we'll be at Henry Ford Museum.
Jimmy, we're here now.
We're here, all right.
Yeah.
Gus?
Yeah.
A minor discrepancy.
Okay, let's look at this minor discrepancy.
A.J. Foyt.
Okay, let me go there. Here we go.
At this museum, he won the Hoosier 100 in 1960. I thought that they were talking about the Indy car in 1964 when he won.
Okay.
In the Watson Roadster.
Okay, so for modeling purpose, for the cars you're building.
Oh, there's a lot of references. The Heldbrand wheels.
Okay.
That's a great reference. For
okay.
Spinners.
Hold on, let me get close to you so they can hear you.
The back wheels.
Okay.
The way the seat is offset. the size of the roll bar. The whole rear end is the same as a Watson Roadster.
Okay.
And in this case, I can see the front suspension too.
Okay.
But this car was designed to run on dirt tracks.
Okay.
And just like Indy, they run to counterclockwise in left-hand turns.
Okay.
And what was unique about this, the Watson Roadster, that you can see here is the driver was offset to the right and the engine was offset to the left.
Okay.
In other cars, the drive shaft would run underneath the driver and he would be up high above the chassis.
Okay.
But A.J. Watson redesigned the engine to be a little bit over to the left to where the drive shaft ran along the left-hand side of the driver and the driver could come down lower.
Okay.
This lowered the center of gravity for
Okay.
Indy racing.
Okay.
If you look at this car, you can see that the engine is offset to the right and the driver is offset to the left. Do you notice that? You see
Yes,
that?
I can see that.
There's a little bit of a bias there.
Yes.
See, turning left was a big deal. This car race, this Hoosier 100 race, was in Indiana,
Okay.
and it was on a state fairground dirt track.
Okay.
And the significance of that is those state fairgrounds were found all over America, and every city would have a horse race
Okay.
at the turn of the century.
Okay.
And as you know, all horses run turning left.
Oh, I didn't know that, but that's cool.
Think about it. You
yeah.
never see a horse race
Yeah.
with the horses going clockwise. They always go counterclockwise.
Counterclockwise, yeah.
So when the automobile developed
Uh-huh.
and they began having auto races at state fairgrounds,
Okay.
the cars turned to their left.
Okay, that explains why the
This-
engine and the
engine
seats.
is transferred to
Okay.
the left because you want all four tires to contact the ground evenly.
Okay.
And when you're turning left at 100 miles an hour, the two left tires and wheels want to rise and pressure comes off it, and all the pressure comes on the right-hand side.
Okay.
If you put the engine over to the left, you're taking 200 pounds and offsetting it closer to the tires that want to come up.
Okay.
Now you're settled down, and that was a successful idea that A.J. Watson had, and he created in that Watson Roadster that I'm modeling at home.
Okay.
But in terms of turning left,
So I'm gonna before you do turning left, I'm gonna ask you a question. So when you're modeling, is the seat gonna be a little off left in your
it
little
is,
model
yeah,
car?
it already is. It already is. It wasn't on the toy. Remember
Okay.
the toy car?
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't on the toy
Yeah,
car.
I had to ask because
Well,
I know you're gonna.
Before I modeled, I studied up on A.J. Watson, and he was a genius.
Okay.
He began as a crew chief in the early 50s,
Uh-huh.
and a winning crew chief at that. He was only like 26 years old. And then in his garage in California, he and a bunch of hot rod buddies began coming up with ideas to make the car go faster.
Yeah, yeah. So now when this is amazing, so now when we look at the models when they're done, nobody's gonna say, "Look, the seat's not perfectly aligned in the middle." Yeah, it's
Okay,
on purpose.
Let me
All
tell
right.
you something, Gus.
Yeah,
See
yeah.
that Lotus over there?
Oh, hold on. Let me shift
That's
to the
an
Lotus.
IndyCar Lotus.
Yeah,
That car with the engine in the rear
yeah.
took the place of this car, the
Okay.
Watson Roadster.
Okay.
What do you see different about that car?
The left side has a smaller shaft than the right side.
That's right, because the whole body is to the inside.
You can see it right
so
here
when the car turns
versus-
left, and the car turns left,
It's same to that left
biased
story.
to that side. Not many people notice that.
No.
Not
So
many
the
people
so the
notice
Indy
that.
basically is biased to the left based on these horse
Yeah.
racing.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So
because of the-
you mentioned something else when we were talking about this car, is how great the engine is in this car. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. In 1964, when A.J. Foyt won the Indy 500 in a Watson Roadster,
Yeah.
he won it with an Offie engine, an Offenhauser four-cylinder engine.
Okay.
To me, I love the Ford Cosworth, but
Yeah.
that engine has to be the greatest engine ever made
Okay.
for racing because it started in the 1930s
Okay.
and it went all the way till about 1970, 1971.
So what's
when
great
it was
about
turbocharged.
this engine?
It's a small engine.
Okay.
Really, the history of it is that it started as a boat motor.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because a guy named Miller, who was an IndyCar racer, took a Peugeot engine
Okay.
and he turned it into a straight 8-cylinder.
Okay.
And then they changed the rules and he went out of business and Offenhauser bought him out.
Okay.
and Offenhauser was his mechanic.
Okay.
And his draftsman and him cut the engine in half and made a 4-cylinder out of it.
That's interesting.
But the beautiful part is that
Yeah.
the head and the engine block are all one casting.
Okay.
On modern cars, you could blow head gaskets
Okay.
because the heads are bolted on.
Okay.
In that car, there was no head gasket.
Okay.
So that piston would come up and create compression. We're
Okay.
limited to like 10-to-1, maybe 12-to-1, because any more compression than that,
Okay.
the compression is squeezing the gas and fuel mixture.
Okay.
The tighter you make it, the bigger the
The
explosion.
explosion. Yeah.
Well, in this car, because the heads were part of the block,
Yeah.
you could raise it up to as high as 15-to-1.
Okay.
So they were developing 400 horsepower out of a 4-cylinder
In
back in the 1940s and 50s and into the
impressive.
60s.
Impressive.
And to be
Impressive.
honest with you, they turbocharged it in the late 60s to try to beat the rear engine Watson.
So for how many years did this engine was dominant?
From the 1930s until 1964, when A.J. Foyt won last at the Indy 500.
And I'm assuming the Hoosier 100 race is basically a dirt race
It's
versus
a dirt track race.
yeah. So let's
Here's a picture of the dirt track
okay.
race.
Let me go and look.
This is how they raced at fairgrounds.
Oh, sorry.
That's how they raced at fairgrounds.
Uh-huh.
You know, this is going left.
Yep.
This is the engine itself.
Okay.
It had dual cams over the top, 2 cylinders, 2 intakes and 2 exhaust valves over each of the 4 cylinders.
Okay.
That's what made this thing so powerful.
Yeah.
And it was a small, compact.
And well, you can tell from the car size, right? I mean, here, let me go back to the car here, and you can tell this is not a big engine. So
When they took Miller's V8 and
Yeah.
cut it in half,
yeah.
they did that so they could sell it to the boat racers. Because
Okay.
boat racers needed a small engine that was light.
Okay.
And then the car racers realized how dominant they could be with them.
Okay.
And it took off.
Okay.
And it took off.
So tell me the differences between this from a modeling perspective. So
Oh, well.
yeah.
The difference is that it's a taller car.
Okay.
And I believe it's a little bit shorter for the dirt track.
Okay.
But as far as the suspension is concerned, it's got a torsion bar. I'm
Okay.
going to reach over there
Yeah.
and touch it. See
Okay.
that bar?
Yeah. Be careful.
That,
Yeah. Okay.
that bar twists.
Okay.
And instead of a spring, it doesn't have a spring on it.
Okay.
It actually twists and keeps the car balanced and centered.
Okay.
And then there's a lower arm.
Okay.
In this case, they had dual shocks on this car.
Okay.
I'd never seen pictures of a car with the dual shocks.
Okay.
So I'm going to be taking reference pictures of this and taking it home.
Okay.
That's what I needed to see right there.
Okay, good. So this ends our video on how you're going to model this car in a very noisy Henry Ford museum. Thank you, Jimmy, for spending time with me.
Okay.
And I'll
Thank you
catch
for
you
bringing me.
catch you on another video. Again, everyone, I apologize that I'm taking over the taping, and we should be good. See you guys later.